My name is Travis Woodward, and I will be giving a presentation on the competence to consent to research. This will be my Module 3 presentation for Psychology 546, Advanced Forensic Psychology. So before getting into the details of what competence to consent to research is, I think it's important to discuss the definition of what competency is. So according to Melton et al., competence is an individual's ability to understand information relevant to a decision and to appreciate the potential consequences of that decision. This includes the capacity to comprehend the nature of the research, its potential risks and benefits, and the ability to make an informed voluntary choice about participation. Finally, assessing competence is crucial to ensure that participants can provide valid, informed consent for research activities. To sum this slide up, basically it's saying that competence means you're able to understand what's being told to you, as well as being able to relate it to yourself, and the consequences make a little bit more sense in regards to you and your situation rather than just in hypothetical form. Now, Melton et al. Did talk about four core principles that make up the decision of competence to consent to research. Those four core principles being understanding, appreciation, reasoning, and expression of choice. And here in a second, I'm going to go into detail on each of these core principles as well as giving an example for each one. So, looking at the first core principle, understanding, this is the individual's ability to comprehend the information provided about the study. According to Melton, it involves the capacity to process and recall information necessary to make an informed decision. And researchers must ensure that information is presented in a clear and accessible manner to support comprehension, especially for populations with cognitive limitations. So, for example, a researcher explaining a new drug trial to a potential participant with a mild cognitive impairment, where the researcher asked the participant to then repeat key details of the discussion back in their own words, and the participant then correctly explaining that the drug is an experimental drug which has potential side effects and risks, and that they may receive a placebo. This shows that that patient or that potential participant understands what they've been told about the research study that's about to happen. Moving on to the second core principle, which is appreciation. This involves the participant's ability to relate the provided information to their own circumstances. In other words, they are able to realize how it's going to affect them. And individuals with certain mental illnesses might understand the study's details, but struggle to appreciate its relevance to their personal experience. And according to Melton, appreciation requires recognizing how the potential risks and benefits apply to one's own situation and making judgments accordingly. So, once again, they understand and kind of see the gravity of the situation they're in and are able to realize how it's going to affect them. So, an example of this would be a person with schizophrenia considering to enroll themselves in a study on antipsychotic medication, where the researcher then explains that there is a chance that they may not receive the actual drug and instead a placebo. And the participant then acknowledges that they may not actually be treated and their symptoms could remain untreated if they receive the placebo, which shows that they know the implications of the study for their own health. Looking at the third core principle, which is reasoning, this talks about the participant's ability to logically evaluate the risks and benefits of participation and reaching a decision based on those evaluations. So, reasoning involves using the available information to weigh alternatives and reach a rational conclusion about participation. And it highlights the importance of assessing whether participants can make decisions free from undue influence or cognitive distortions. So, basically, using the first two core principles, they come to a logical evaluation of the understanding of what they've been told and the appreciation of what they've been told, where they then make a decision on whether or not they're going to either continue with the study or research or not. So, an example of this would be a cancer patient being offered the opportunity to participate in a clinical trial for a new cancer treatment. And after being told the risks, side effects, and, considering that the drug might not work and that there are also proven drugs that do work and are available, sitting down with their doctor and family and deciding to participate because the risk outweighs the potential consequences. The risk and reward is greater than the consequences that they'll face taking this clinical trial for a new treatment. And then finally, looking at the fourth core principle, which is expression of choice. This kind of sums up the first three. Um, and it's described as requiring the participant to convey a clear and consistent decision regarding participation without external pressure, which basically means they have to voluntarily and willingly come up with a decision on their own, made up on their own accord, based on their um, appreciation, understanding, and reasoning. So this focuses on the participant's ability to communicate their decision clearly, whether to consent or refuse. And it ensures that consent is voluntary and reflects the participant's authentic wishes. So, an example of this would be a university student being invited to join a psychological study on stress management techniques. After reading and reviewing the informed consent form and asking questions to the researchers, they use their understanding of the study, their appreciation of how it's going to affect them, and then reasoning on whether or not it's a good idea to continue the study. They express their decision to not want to participate. And this can work in either way for consent or refusal. So, after looking at all these core principles and kind of getting an idea of what the competence to consent to research is, I've come up with a discussion question, which is how should researchers balance the ethical obligation to respect a participant's autonomy with the need to ensure that individuals with cognitive impairments are truly competent to consent to research? Also, what strategies can be used to assess and enhance their understanding while avoiding undue influence under coercion? So I think these are really relevant to the topic that I've been discussing. And if you have any answers, please feel free to let them, let them be heard down in the comments below. I'd love to have a discussion on it, what y'all think, and if I could maybe learn something from y'all. Now, I will say another source that I used outside of the textbook was an article from the National Library of Medicine, which talks about capacity, vulnerability, and informed consent for research, which I think is very relevant to this topic, and it provided a lot of insight to me. It'll be linked down below in the description of the video for you to go check out if you want to read it. I would highly recommend it. So, my reference for this is the textbook, and I have no other things to talk about. So, that has been my presentation on the competence to consent to research. Thank you.